would be routine, just two Allied carriers meeting at out in the Pacific. The sky was clear and the sea was calm. Cut it with a knife. The Japanese warship JS, sleek, silent, newly armed with vertical. To her west, a U.S. Navy supercarrier waited, flanked by destroyers, deck. What happened next surprised everyone on board. As the American F-35B made its final approach, something unexpected rose up on the Kaga's signal mast. Not gull, a simple, unofficial signal flag. An old-school naval gesture, respect. The Japanese deck crew paused, confused at first. Then you saw it. The shared understanding. Two carriers, two countries, one language. Because this wasn't just an exercise. It was the first real moment that Japan's reborn naval air power stood so powerful navy on Earth and proved it belonged there. And yeah, differences, command styles that didn't always sync. As the U.S. fighter touched down on Japanese steel, all of what mattered was this. What happens when Japan and the U.S. don't just co as one carrier strike group? That's what this video is all about. And trust me, anyone expected. The jet hit the deck with barely a bounce. That American F-35, it was making history. The ship it landed on? Not American, not even technically a carrier a few years ago. It was the JS Kaga. Japan's this moment wasn't a drill, it was a reveal. Long ago, Kaga was a helicopter destroyer, designed for search and rescue, disaster relief, all that changed. Japan took that hull, stripped it down as expected. A true fixed-wing carrier, their first one since World War II. For decades, Japan avoided anything that looked like a traditional politics, constitution, history. All of it pointed away from aircraft carriers. And then came China, Korea, then Taiwan Strait tensions. Doctrine caught up with reality. So what did they do? They upgraded the Kaga, reinforced the flight deck with heat-resistant coatings for vertical landings, reworked the bow for better air, created navigation systems compatible with U.S. Navy protocols. They made it F-35B ready. That's right. The same stealth jet that can hover, spin, systems like they were born in the same lab. This ship is no gimmick. It's no showable platform designed to operate seamlessly with U.S. Navy carriers. This landing wasn't a PR stunt. It was the first time an American F-35B touched down on a Japanese carrier. Not a simulation. Real jet, real mission, real steel. Wide way of saying, we're not just watching the Pacific anymore. And for the sailors watching from the deck of the U.S. carrier across the formation, they knew exactly what this meant and crossed the line. From support vessel to strike ship. Change a ship's purpose. You change the entire balance. So what's the big deal, right? One fighter, one landing, one handshake across the sea. Wrong. Because this wasn't just about showing off. This was together. You've got Japan's JS Kaga sailing in formation with a full-blown U.S. carrier strike group. Flight ops coordinated. Deck crews moving like they trained together for years. They didn't have to do this. No treaty said you must. No emergency required it. This was a choice. It was a choice to say loud and clear, to train apart, but now we operate together. And someone was definitely watching. You better believe PLA satellites were snapping images the second those two carriers came into the same frame. A country like Japan, especially not when it just went from 0 carriers to yield US-compatible stealth fighters. And especially not side by side with American air power. And if you're trying to see watching that unfold, you don't see two navies. You see one strike group flying the flags of this moment rewrote the rules. For the first time in decades, a Japanese carrier, it's operational. And the U.S. Navy isn't just supporting Japan. That means more than shared missions. It means shared responsibilities, shared deterrence. Because out here in the Indo-Pacific ship, it's about who's willing to sail together when it counts. The answer is clear. You want precision? Watch every movement rehearsed, every signal sharp energy. Now contrast that with the American crew. Efficient, but looser, more intuitive, less rigid. How it worked. That difference, its Chicago callouts were clipped, almost whispered. On the U.S. side, they barked commands across open headsets. When you're landing 5th-gen stealth fighters at 140 knots, that's the thing about naval aviation. It doesn't care about execution. One of the moments that defined the encounter came during a flyover. F-35Bs and 2 Japan Air Self-Defense Force F-35Bs flew as a diamond formation over both ships. Crews paused. The moment was quiet, clean, and deadly. The real test. Cross-deck landing ops. A Japanese pilot guided by an American LSO, the landing signal officer, carrier. He did. Clean, controlled, right after a U.S. Marine pilot brought his F-35B down on the perfect execution. You could almost hear the political analysis. This wasn't just about landing jets, though. It was about proving something most people didn't think was even possible. Speaking 2 different languages, operating 2 different command philosophies, could still fly like. And yeah, there were bumps. At one point, a signal missed elevator. A U.S. LSO had to clarify deck status twice. Turns out the Japanese crew had locked the aircraft's chocks. A few hiccup, no drama, fixed in seconds. But even because instead of pausing operations, both sides adapted on the fly mid-mission. And here's the wild part. All in contested waters. The Philippine Sea, well within satellite range of Chinese, after Beijing had flexed its own carrier group past Taiwan. Hence, it was choreography. The U.S. carrier strike group further south had synchronized movements. A real-world dry run for the one thing no one wants to joint naval response if Taiwan goes hot. There up a Chinese reconnaissance drone loitering near the edge of international airspace. No engagement, no violation, but American F-18s vectored toward it, flanked by a Japanese F-35. Message sent. Back on deck, you could feel the tempo lift. Refuel crews doubled time, ordnance checks tightened, everyone was on edge, and as dusk hit, the carriers lit up. Landing lights running beacons and the eerie sky. Aerial ballet, but with teeth. It wasn't chaos, it was called a very clear story. The US and Japan don't just trust each other, Marie. Because when things go loud in the Pacific, that's what this encounter proved. Not just that the US would help guide them in, but that when the call comes with China Sea or somewhere where somebody's watching, these two navies can operate as one. Planning to test that? This encounter was your warning shot. It wasn't just a photo op. This was power in jets, deck drills, and strike group formation. And the world took note, especially Beijing. It didn't just see a Japanese ship and a US ship sailing side by side. It saw something far more dangerous, carrier force. That's a nightmare scenario for any military planner in the PLA Navy. One US super airfield. Add in Japan's Kaga, now fully F-35 capable, dual flight decks, shared ISR, and overlapping air cover stretching hundreds of miles. It's not synergy. And in a region where control of the skies matters more than fleet size. It means you can't assume. It means Japan isn't just defending its coast, and the timing couldn't be more precise. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait is launching test missiles again. Chinese fish acting as state-backed militia are swarming Philippine waters. The Pacific isn't just so when Japan and the US coordinate a real-time not just a message, it's a move. It's a strategic repositioning of doctrine from reactive, and let's not forget, this isn't just about military alliance, tactics, and trust. The US is letting Japanese pilots, Japan is adjusting its systems to US protocols. That level of interoperability doesn't just happen unless one game. And for countries like Australia, the Philippines, and South Korea, because if Japan and the US can operate joint carrier Indo-Pacific Strike Network, that's what this moment really means. Not war, not provocation, but it signals that Allied forces are no longer waiting for something to happen. They're training to it. And if you're a state planning to test that readiness, the ocean may look calm, but two Allied carriers sailing in formation, that's the loudest silence. So here's where we land. Two aircraft carriers, one synchronized battle group, moving as if they've done this 100 times before. Didn't lead, Japan didn't follow, they operated together. And in doing so, they did comms, they sent a signal. To allies, to rivals, think twice. Because when the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force single unit, that's not routine, that's doctrine in motion. That's a quiet formation current tomorrow. And that leads us to one question, maybe the most important one. If a Japan-US carrier force was deployed near the Taiwan Strait during a future crisis, would it stop the US? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Seriously, reread every single one. Let's hear what it really means. And hey, if this breakdown gave you new insight, hit that like button. If you want more sharp fact-based, subscribe. And don't forget to click the bell so you don't miss what's next. But if you want to take it as fleet, you'll get loyalty badges, priority replies, naval stories to the surface. Click join on our channel page and stay sharp. And remember, calm seas doesn't always mean